What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the Wise Take NFL DFS Wise Stream. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. Joined once again by the True OG Paulie D. You can find on Twitter at Paulie with 8 D's. Paulie, what's happening?
What up, man?
I had to fix the name thing. I had it on Patio Joe from the First Look show. So as I'm fixing, I'm putting your Twitter in the box. And I'm saying it, and I'm trying to count as I'm like, and but chilling, man, chilling like a villain on a Wednesday night. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. This is last day without football week, pretty much since Monday.
Yes, and this is the last week of baseball, man.
Yeah,
regular season style.
Yeah.
Last week of baseball. Yep. I got a little bone to pick with the nation a little bit, man. I mean, we can't even give money away, man. We ran a giveaway on Twitter today, asking for likes, retweets, follow. Very simple, to give somebody an opportunity to win $20, man. Figure why not give somebody 20 to throw in the Millie Maker on for NFL. All they had to do was like the tweet. All they had to do was retweet the tweet. Follow us on Twitter at @wise_take, and then reply with your top running back. That's it. It sounds like fun to me. I mean, shit, for $20, I would do that shit for free.
Yeah.
So please, if you are not following us at Wise Take Twitter, which is @wise_take, please go do yourself a favor and do that. Do us the favor, I should say. And it's pinned on the profile. Take advantage of it. Chance to win $20, man. Why not? $20. Trying to stake somebody in the Millie Maker. Why not you? Go do it.
And I build a team with whoever wins.
Look at that. Drop sevens and dirties. That quickly. But anyway, appreciate those of you who have been sticking with us and grinding out the MLB season, grinding out the showdowns as we look for something to do in between the big main slates on Sundays. And tonight is no different. Tonight is probably the epitome of that, as we've got the Miami Dolphins and the Jacksonville Jaguars kicking off week 3 with some Thursday night football action. Overall thoughts on the game before we start jumping in?
Yeah, this is as ugly as it gets. 2 of the 5 worst teams in football. I do think the Jets and Giants are worse right now than both these teams, or at least one of them.
Well, the Jets are for sure. There's no doubt about it.
Carolina, after losing D-Mac, they're in big trouble too. And usually when you have 2 teams this bad, that I would say Miami's certainly stronger offensively. Jacksonville is kind of balanced poorly all across the field. But usually you see higher scoring games, but I think this is going to be a ugly, low scoring game, and I'm going to kind of build accordingly. I'll have a lot of double defense builds in the showdown slates. I'll have a lot of kicker, running back, defense. I'm not expecting a ton of scoring, and the defense starts off with a 10 or a 15 if it's in the hot spot, and I think there's opportunity for interceptions, fumbles, pick sixes, some sacks, that kind of stuff. Just poor, inexperienced, weak teams across all sides of the ball. So I think there's opportunity for mistakes, and one of those ugly, fast clock kind of moving kind of games. Could be wrong, Miami certainly I think can air it out, Ryan Fitzpatrick, but usually that's when they're down by a bunch, and I don't see either team kind of running away with it. I think we see like a 13-10, 19-14, just ugly under 40 point kind of game, which I know the total would disagree with me, but that's built on perception, and both these teams have given up a ton of points to some good teams and scored some of their own as well, and I think that's why the total's high, and I'm not expecting it to get anywhere close to that.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to end up being a contrarian type build. You mentioned that both of these defenses are not good, and you're right. The total initially opened up at 44 and now sitting at 48 with 76% of the bets coming in on the over. So perception is everything in the sports betting world. And I agree, man. We just saw Miami in a shootout with Buffalo. It was really good defense. We saw Jacksonville beat the Colts and then have their own little shootout with the Titans that ended up like a 30-33 game. So I agree that the perception is pushing this total up. What we have to take into account is these teams are not actually that good to begin with on either side of the ball, and also that this is a short week, right? We're entering week 3. We're seeing injuries everywhere. Clearly, there's a lot of guys who are not in game shape, and now you're coming on a short week. I completely understand the merit, and just in general, I think going against perception is going to lead you towards a more contrarian build anyway. If that's what we do. So I'm curious to hear how you plan on approaching each team. With that said, we'll get into it. Dolphins, Jaguars, 48 total. Jacksonville currently 3-point favorites at home. We're going to start with the Miami Dolphins side. Paulie, how are you approaching the Dolphins?
All right. So I think I'm gonna look at some Gaskin. He seems to be the lead back, getting involved in the pass game and getting the most carries or close to the most. None of them are really getting a ton, but the pass game work is, I predominantly play on DraftKings. He'd be the guy. I think Breida is kind of interesting as well. Not that into Jordan Howard. I kind of see him kind of being phased out, where Gaskin and Breida are both young and have some potential, long-term value to the team. And, in a throwaway season, you want to get as much looks at those kind of guys. So on the ground, those would be the two. Through the air, Devontae Parker, Preston Williams would be the two. And I don't mind having one of them without the quarterback in a lineup. All it takes is 6 for 70 and a touchdown to be the highest scoring player in this game. Isaiah Ford, is very, very cheap, but I don't think salary is going to be an issue. And he got 9 targets last week, so you can mix him in there. But I kind of plan to just kind of go with Devontae and Preston, because I think my build style is going to be contrarian enough that I don't need to really dig deep for that one contrarian cheap play like an Isaiah Ford or Jakeem Grant or something like that. So Parker, Williams, and then obviously Gesicki, who's pretty much the number one in this offense. Don't plan to have a ton of Fitzpatrick. I don't see this being that high scoring.
I think definitely when you look at Miami's offense, you start with Gesicki, especially considering we just saw Jonnu Smith have a pretty good damn game against Jacksonville. We didn't really see the Colts, do too much with the tight end in that game, but we did see the receivers have their way. Either way, it does seem like Jacksonville's got a real issue with pass defense. So I think Gesicki, I don't think he is the leader of targets so far. He's got 15 or 16 total targets. He's also the leader in air yards with 176 air yards. Next highest being Preston Williams at 157. So he's where you start. I think that whether your build is, I would assume who do you think the highest on captain is going to be? Let me start with that. In the quarterbacks?
That's a good question. Yeah.
Or Gesicki.
Probably Minshew. Probably Minshew. If I had to pick a Dolphin, it's either going to be Devontae Parker or Gesicki.
And I don't hate that. It just makes sense. You expect him to get a lot of the targets, and even if the game is slow and it comes down to more raw points than anything else, I want to take my chance with the volume guys. At least he has the opportunity on DraftKings where you get PPR. So I think it starts with him. You mentioned the running back situation. I think I'm with you on Howard. Now on a slow, I guess if you anticipate Miami leading and you want to correlate him with the Miami defense or something like that, I can make a case for Howard because I think he will be used in a more traditional pound him kind of role. Miami hasn't really had a chance to be in that position. They're constantly playing from behind. So we're seeing this Gaskin kid constantly get in, and he's the pass catching guy, and he's got 11 targets on a season, so he's nothing to scoff at. But I'm not so willing to just say that Miami's going to be playing from behind in this game. I think they're both bad. So there's just as good as an opportunity that they're playing from ahead, even if it is a small lead. So I don't want to rule out Howard, but obviously, if you're assuming the game's going to go how Vegas anticipates with Jacksonville being favored, then yeah, it would make more sense to go with Gaskin. He seems to be the higher floor play due to the targets. I don't. It's tough. I do like the idea of being more contrarian. If you're going with that low scoring build, is use some of these guys that again have the volume, but not as worried about upside, like Devontae Parker, for instance, who's got 13 targets. But I think in tournaments, I think Preston Williams could be an interesting spot. I'm assuming people are going to play Isaiah Ford. People are going to notice those targets. They're going to notice a 3K player on a showdown slate with that many targets. And obviously Devontae Parker has the name and Gesicki has the numbers. So I think maybe Preston Williams could kind of be one of the receivers that just doesn't really get played a ton or maybe not put in the captain. But he is tied with Isaiah Ford and Parker in targets. And he's second in air yards at 157. So I think that we just haven't seen, like, on an efficiency level, we just haven't really seen it, come together. But definitely some interesting plays on the Miami side. And again, you're just going to have to script it how you think the game goes. With that said, let's go to the Jacksonville side. What do you like on this side? I think DJ Chark's actually questionable, I think.
Yeah, and I do think he plays, but if he's out, that would create some opportunity. But if he plays, he's going to be my favorite Jacksonville Jaguar. Just like Gesicki and Parker on Miami, he's the clear-cut best player on this team. Then it's probably Laviska Shenault at receiver, who got 5 carries last game and, was drafted, I believe, second or third round, scored a touchdown week 1. Keelan Cole, they seem to like. Whenever this guy's gotten on the field, he's done well. He's just always been behind, in the depth chart. And then Chris Conley got a decent amount of targets. So I like all those, all 4 of them. If Chark's out, then Shenault, Cole, and Conley all would be, my favorite Jaguars. If Chark's in, then it'd probably be more Chark and probably Keelan Cole. Nothing doing at tight end for me, although Tyler Eifert did score a touchdown. I'm just not that into it. And then at running back, it's this guy, James Robinson, who, outside of Minshew, he'd probably be a candidate, too, to be one of the higher-owned captains on this slate, with, the volume that he's getting, mostly on the ground and some through the air, and just people like to follow the volume. And he's one of the higher, volumatic players on Jacksonville. Don't know if that's a word, but it's the receivers that I'd be most interested in. Minshew's been efficient. He's been really good, actually. But I think they've caught a Colts team kind of sleeping, not prepared week 1. And Tennessee, I don't really have much respect for their defense. Not that we have any for Miami's, but I just, I don't think the game script is going to force him to have to do as much. But I do like Minshew, as well from Jacksonville. Not as much interest, on Fitzpatrick on the other side, but Minshew with the rushing and just like his general scoring ability makes him attractive as well. So Minshew with the receivers, not really as into the Robinson kid at running back. And I do think both these teams' run defenses are their strengths if they have any, versus I think both their pass defenses are among the worst in football, although Miami does have some decent corners when they're healthy.
Yeah, I think I'm a little higher on the Jacksonville offense, specifically Robinson in this scenario. This is one of the few situations where I think people kind of can somewhat expect his work to be there. And in the other games, it was kind of surprising. You didn't expect him to be hanging around with Tennessee that long. You didn't expect him to be hanging around with the Colts that long. So, again, I do think it's a contrarian approach to just assume that this game duds out. But I do find it hard not to like Robinson. I mean, I just, especially on a short week where maybe they didn't have as much time to prepare as usual, I can see them trying to run, especially if, like you're saying, if Miami is struggling to move the ball or to get their offense clicking on the road. You would think that means Robinson's in for a ton of work. I mean, if you like Minshew, then that would favor more of a shootout, I think, in which we start looking at more of the Miami receivers and try to get some of that back and forth, especially with the pass catching running back. But if we're expecting Miami to somewhat struggle, or this game in general to be slow paced, and then you got to think that Robinson's going to get his touches. So I think that rostering him from a raw points perspective makes sense. At the same time, I agree with you that I think the ownership, because of the total and because of the fact that they are home and they're favored, is going to lead to Robinson having high ownership. So in a way, it makes me want to just like almost build for the shootout, but with receivers, and just kind of like, not expect this game to have a ton of handoffs, and expect these guys to push each other a little bit, expect these guys to throw and keep the clock running. So the more we talk about it, the more it kind of, it kind of pushes me towards that way, because I do agree with you that I don't see how this guy's not popular. He's the only player that gets significant volume. And if you look at what what Miami's done, they have not been good against the pass by any means, but they haven't been good against the run either. Cam Newton, granted he's a quarterback, 75 yards on 15 carries and 2 touchdowns. Against the Bills, I'm surprised they didn't try to run more. Singletary, 10 carries, 56 yards. Zach Moss, 8 carries, 37 yards. So that's 5.6 and 4.6 yards a carry. So they were, I guess Miami just kind of pushed them, and they felt like they had to throw. And then you factor in Josh Allen had four rushes. But I don't know. I feel like the only way that Robinson doesn't get his carries and do his part is if Miami does the same thing, if they kind of flip the script and they push Jacksonville and force them to throw more.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, if you're going to be like taking the approach I am with playing 2 defenses, right? You have 4 slots left. At that point, it becomes, who are the 4 highest raw scoring players, because you'll have the money with going 2 defenses, especially if one's in the captain. Robinson could certainly be that, and just because you have them in doesn't mean you're building for the shootout. Like, I think by putting 2 defenses in, you're going against that, but you're still going to need the highest raw scoring players. And for Jacksonville, that's going to be Robinson, Minshew, and whichever receiver you think has the decent game, if you do think it's low scoring. And for Miami, I think that's tougher, but probably Gaskins and Gesicki and Devontae Parker. But I don't think either team scores more than 2 offensive touchdowns either way.
Fair enough indeed. Let's talk about we'll talk about some of the captains that we do like the idea of playing. Give me like maybe your top 3 captains going into the slate.
Both defenses, and Gardner Minshew.
It's a bold move, Cotton. Defenses and the captain. Holla. I'm going to go with Gesicki number 1. Let's go with Preston Williams number 2 as like the lower owned sucker. And I'll go with you on Minshew Mania. I think the optimal answer, if I want to keep myself covered, would be James Robinson. But I'll go Gardner Minshew and try to get on some of that contrarianism with you a little bit.
I mean, Gardner Minshew has scored 20 and 25 points in the 2 weeks he's played, right? The Robinson kid has scored what, like 8 and 10 and 21,
Right, but again, like we're talking about, Jacksonville's favored in this game. Like they're never favored here. So I just think that's going to push people to playing Robinson a little bit. Yeah.
I agree. I do think they're going to play him.
Let's get into value plays. We got Matt Breida all the way at the bottom at 1,800. We've got the receiver. I forgot his name again. Damn it, man. From Miami, the 3K dude. Bro, I don't know what. I just can't remember that motherfucker's name. Anyway, talk to me about some of your favorite value options. And obviously the defense when them 1 and 2 goes without saying.
Yes. Yep. So I guess we would consider. Oh man, I don't think there's like a single one. I guess Chris Conley on Jacksonville at 2-2. Really like that. Coming off the 7 targets, experience. I think he's good. He just, not good enough to be a 1 or a 2, but he's been around the league for a while. He was on the Chiefs, and then from Miami, um, as you mentioned, Matt Breida, and I would probably say Jakeem Grant and Isaiah Ford. Like, Jakeem Grant is super fast. He hasn't gotten a ton of touches, 4 targets week 1, only 1 last week. But these are contrarian. You only need like 1. We've seen it time and time again. Who scored a touchdown for the Saints on the Monday night? Like a Troutman or something.
Let me get me started.
Guys you just never heard of. So Jakeem Grant is a guy that can take a 1-yard screen 60 yards to the house on 1 target for the game, and help you win a tournament. So it'd be Jakeem Grant as well for me over there, and he's going to be like 1%.
You can't play a Jacksonville kicker because Lambeau is now on the IR apparently, and they don't have another kicker in the pool. So, no,
that's not cool.
No kickers on Jacksonville. In general, I think Matt Breida is definitely interesting. He's getting just as many carries as Jordan Howard, it looks like. So he's just as good of a shot. He's more efficient. Like, in my opinion, like he's made out of glass, but. If he doesn't get banged up too bad, I think he's got more upside than Howard, to be honest. Assuming that they get equal work, which they have been.
Peter was coming off an injury, like in the preseason. Right. You know what I mean? Like, now he's probably the most healthy he's been. You see his market share gone up from week 1 to week 2. Expect another increase. You know what I'm saying? And I think at the end of it, when it's all said and done, he'll end up being the number 1 on this team.
I'll say this: if DJ Chark doesn't play, he didn't practice today, right? So that could be because the game's tomorrow and they want to get him as much rest as they can. But if he does not play, does that do anything? Does that change anything as far as the Jacksonville offense goes?
Not a ton, but Conley, Laviska Shenault, and Keelan Cole would just all be kind of assured 5+ targets and touches, and I kind of still like them anyway in the showdown format. I think I like him better if he plays, because if he's out, then they're all going to be 20-30% higher than they will be if he's in.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that would increase the running backs ownership. James Robinson. I think that would obviously increase the other receivers around him. But I wonder, it might actually decrease Gardner Minshew's ownership a little bit, right? Like, I mean, that's a pretty big weapon. I think people remember that from last year, that connection that he had with Shark. So just something to keep an eye on, something to consider. As far as the chat goes, Wig asks, do you think Tua plays any? I mean, there's no reason to believe other than Fitzpatrick's had games where he's thrown like 7 picks. You know what? If Paulie's having a good day, Tua might play, right? Because if Tua plays, it's probably because either Fitzpatrick got hurt, which nobody would root for, or Fitzpatrick had one of those games where he threw like 4 or 5 picks like inexplicably. And so that means the Jacksonville defense just went like beast mode, so they brought in Tua, right? Like just saying.
So, I feel like I heard something along the lines of like they're not gonna play him, but I should know this better since I'm down here in Miami. But let me take a quick look at some of the local news here. So Dolphins Wire, actually, the headline says a quarterback change may be looming, but it won't fix the Dolphins. So that could be really interesting, Wig. I actually love just that you're thinking like that. If it is in fact something that's more possible than we thought. Let me see what else I can find out. That would be actually exciting. Like, if we get word that there's a chance that they do bring him in, and the game's ugly or the Dolphins are really struggling and he comes in, I wouldn't be surprised if he did well, just like the Chargers quarterback did when he got in.
Right.
I think he's talented, and I think the team would get motivated to do well for him. I'm going to dig into that a little more. I will certainly let the nation know when I find out.
I'm with it. I think I think that'll do it for today's little showdown breakdown. Actually, I'm getting kind of interested in this slate the more we talk about it. Like, obviously,
Yeah.
right? Like, we approach everything the same way we always do, but sometimes you're more excited than other times to really get into it and actually play it. And now I'm starting to get some ideas, so I think this could be a lot of fun. We'll have to hop into the Slack, Sake, and get into it. Get into it. Here we go. King Pate says, "What if the Dolphins doctor punctures Fitzpatrick's lung accidentally?" Did you hear about that shit?
Ooh, I did. That's so
Bro,
crazy.
like what? Like that's fucking wild, man. Like, oh my gosh, that's fucking. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, this guy's giving him a shot and he punctured his lung. And like Tyrod played that. That was in week 1. Tyrod played through that shit in week 1. Like, not for nothing. Like, I mean, terrible.
I hope that shit doesn't have a friendly joint on the weekend
Bro.
because I'm sure drug test is
Oh,
coming.
dude,
You know
yeah,
what I
man,
mean?
seriously. And he's out in that's we're talking about California, like. Oh yeah, man. I mean that's just wild. But hopefully Tyrod's okay. That's that kind of shit though. Like you wish you would have known that day before we went a little heavier on the Chargers offense. Like Eckler and those guys. Like would have been nice to know that Tyrod Taylor was playing with a punctured lung. But you know what? He didn't even know because he probably wouldn't have played if he knew he had a punctured lung. But hopefully he's all right, man. That's some crazy shit. Herbert season, I guess, one way or another. With that said, hit the like button, nation. We appreciate you guys hanging out and rocking with the nation. Don't forget to go check us out on Twitter at @wise_take. We're trying to do some giveaways over there. Trying to give away $20. Go find the tweet. It's pinned at the top. Follow the rules. Do the dirty. And that's that. For Paulie D, for myself, the entire Wise Take Nation, as always, good luck.